went to bed last night, you guys, and I had the words AI, AI, AI going around in my head because we talked about it over the last 2 days. And the AI, as I said it again, I thought, oh, it sounds like a police siren. I thought, oh, that's so ironic. It sounds like a police siren because actually what we're here to do and talk about today is actually the warning signs that AI is giving us. We know there are many benefits. We do know that. It's going to bring huge change to the world. But we really do have to think about the impact that AI will have. We've talked perhaps ethically, philosophically, but we're actually going to talk today environmentally. So before we get into our discussion, would you like to introduce yourselves, your role within your company, starting with you, Alessa?
So my name is Alessa Pardavé, and I work as a clean tech lead in the innovation department of Ferrovial in the corporation part, and basically trying to impulse all these new clean technologies regarding energy storage, green molecules, green hydrogen, and help in this transition towards more greener economy.
My name is Jordi Klaas. I'm an investment manager at Eneco Ventures, and we're the CVC arm of Eneco. And Eneco is the largest utility in the Netherlands, and we have this big, ambitious goal as Eneco to become climate neutral in 2035. And as Eneco Ventures, we try to kind of accelerate that transition on behalf of Eneco.
Hi, I'm Claire. I am a digital strategy and sustainability manager at Neoverve, and I'm primarily responsible for putting together a green IT strategy service offering for clients so we can start pushing that agenda in big corporates, small businesses, and it's my personal mission to also just raise awareness around the topic that digital also has a carbon footprint and a water footprint and has an effect on biodiversity.
Thank you very much, the three of you, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Claire, I'm going to start with you because I think it's important now to set the scene, because when I was looking into research on this subject about the effects of AI on the environment, there's very little out there. There doesn't seem to be much hardcore scientific research. So, Claire, as far as you know, what is the situation at the moment?
Unfortunately, there's not enough information out there. I think big tech is not obligated to disclose data. Therefore, there are organizations that are trying to do the research, but there's still a lot of speculation because we just don't, it's not a transparent field. So we have things like the Green Software Foundation and the Green Web Foundation that are really working with open source, with a larger community from all sorts of different backgrounds, trying to put this data together so we can actually get a picture. Because, I mean, we always say, you can't fix what you can't measure. So there's a lot of speculation, which is difficult, a lot of estimations. So, you know, whenever I give a presentation or write a report, it's based on this data, but it's not a field that has enough research yet. It's growing. I mean, I have in the last 2 days received multiple messages from students doing their master's theses in digital sustainability, and I'm like, wow, okay, it's moving forward, but we're not there yet. So that's really the struggle we have right now.
Yeah, and I think the problem is as AI grows so exponentially, the research almost becomes outdated within days, doesn't it? So we need research very quickly, and ironically, could AI actually help within that sphere? Jordi.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. But I tend to always look at this from, I'm from Eneco Ventures, so I tend to always look at this from an investment perspective. So for me, it's always like these things comes in waves, right? So I feel like we've had the blockchain wave in where we invested a lot of money in blockchain, and now all of a sudden like there's no money in blockchain anymore at all. And I feel like in a sort of a long-term setting, I feel like that yes, we need to still invest in AI in order to kind of accelerate that development of AI going forward, but there may be other technologies out there, maybe in, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, that could top AI, or like that could, for example, quantum computing, or any other technology that could be out there. So yes, definitely, we need to still invest in kind of AI and the underlying technologies around that. But I do feel like that if from an investment perspective, there's not enough, it could be that like in 3 to 5 years, AI becomes even obsolete for that matter. Who knows? Yeah.
You're the first person that said that.
Yeah.
Somehow, I didn't think so. Alyssa, technology does not exist in a vacuum, right? And I think there is a misconception, like words like cloud, that people think it is some fluffy cloud. But could you actually talk through some of the materials involved in technology and how they do have an impact on the environment?
Yes. So I think in order to solve the equation and how does AI impact the environment, it's not an easy solution. And we have to think about the digital infrastructure that is needed for AI to work. And this is data centers. And data centers are big energy consumers. And we need to really understand how AI uses energy. And it is throughout the whole process. And even if we look further into the value chain, it goes way beyond like during manufacturing of industrial hardware needed for these data centers to work. And then once you start deploying AI, the energy consumption comes from training and deploying phases of these machine learning models that they are consuming huge amounts of energy. And this is all done in data centers. So they need this energy for operating these computational operations, but as well for cooling these infrastructures in order for them not to overheat. So even 1/3 of the energy consumed from data centers comes from the cooling itself.
Yes, you've got a water issue as well.
Exactly. So that's another huge problem that we tend to oversee, that is the water consumption from data centers. I was just reading the other day, like a mid-sized data center would require around 3,000 gallons of water per day to work. So this is like 1 million liters of water, which to put in perspective is like 10,000 houses in Spain daily consumption. So that's a big issue we need to look on as well.
So just explain a little bit then, Alyssa, what you're doing in your role, clean tech role,
Yes.
which is one of these buzzwords at the moment. How are you looking at each department?
Yes, so well, basically when it comes to AI, and Ferrovial is actually working in building these sustainable digital infrastructures, so what we looked into is to integrate all these new clean technologies, because there's no one easy solution. So we can, first of all, start integrating renewables, of course, but then we also need to face the storage issue, because we need to provide energy 24/7, and sometimes solar and wind, they depend on weather conditions. So we need to implement that. Then we also have like fossil fuels that are used for backup generation, and those could be replaced with, for example, hydrogen fuel cells. We're seeing Microsoft already doing advancements in that part as well. Then for cooling, we are seeing researchers in liquid cooling, immersed cooling solutions, even people talking about putting these servers underground in caves that would keep them cool, you know? And so, yes, there's a lot of excitement for clean tech. And I'm excited because I see leaders of these tech companies that are rooting for these technologies and even investing in them. So I think they will be able to help.
Claire, do you feel as positive as that? I'm just wondering on the subject of renewables, I'd imagine with these big tech companies, when they're seeing the potential of AI, they're going to go directly to fossil fuels.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I have a personal struggle. I'm constantly back and forth with the topic because as far as I see it, you know, artificial intelligence has huge potential. I mean, it was just yesterday at a bar that we met 3 gynecologist surgeons who were going to a conference and talking about how technology and also artificial intelligence can help them with their work. I think that's, you know, a good use of it. But I think what we cannot forget is, yes, you know, hyperscalers are saying that, you know, they use solar and 24/7 clean energy to, you know, for their data centers as such. But what we can't forget is all of this equipment that we need to get solar energy and wind energy. This is all hardware, and hardware comes from the planet. I mean, I think I read the other day that alone a standard laptop has about 66 different types of minerals from the earth that has to be extracted, which mostly is not actually ethically extracted. There's a lot around that. Very often, you know, solar panels are actually produced in areas of water scarcity. And so, you know, what I always say is that, yes, we can talk about how digital is infinite, and we have infinite possibilities, but the resources that we need to run our software on our hardware. These are resources that are finite. We can't be talking about, the planet has finite resources and then almost contradict ourselves and say digital is infinite because it uses finite resources from the planet. And I think very often in this discussion, it's forgotten. We had this discussion yesterday about how many companies are saying, hey, you know what, we are saving energy. I saw a speech the other day about how they use artificial intelligence to recognize inefficient code. And then artificial intelligence replaces the inefficient code. And they saved X amount of energy. And I was like, well, how much energy did you invest by using the artificial intelligence? And this part of the conversation is missing. We're always only looking at the positive side, but we forget to talk about at what cost. So I do see there is huge potential, but I'm a true believer that if you tell one side of the story, you have to tell the full side of the story, and people are not doing that yet.
And are people not listening as well? Because that is part of the issue as well, because we're on this lovely wave at the moment. People are getting excited about it, and you're trying to pull people back, and what kind of reaction are you getting?
I think they often feel like we're trying to stunt innovation, but I don't see it that way. I think it actually encourages innovation. It encourages you to find new creative ways. What I don't agree with, yesterday was a presentation, there's a bunch of VCs, and one of them was saying, if you have a startup that you started in the last 18 months and you don't have AI in your business model, then I'm not even going to look your way. And I was like, wow, so you are encouraging, as a VC, to do a startup with AI for the sake of AI. No. If you're going to use AI, use it purposefully, mindfully, that it really solves a problem. Don't just use it because, well, you can, and it's cool, and it's this trend. Because like Georgie said, trends change quite rapidly, especially in tech.
I think you used the phrase yesterday, conscious innovation, and Geordie, is that something that you'd be looking at in investing in a new company?
I mean, we look at, we have a lot of portfolio companies that are using AI in some way or another. So either it's a solution that's integrated into their bigger solution, or it's like the solution that tries to solve, for example, like Claire just said, we look a lot at like building energy management systems, for example, or home energy management systems. And what they do is, based on AI, they give you kind of an algorithm, and based on certain recommendations, you can adjust your energy usage in your home, for example. And that in itself, I think, is a great example. So we invest as Eneco Ventures in these types of companies. But what we don't look at, because there's literally, like Claire said, no research, there's nothing about this in general, is so if you were to actually get this 10 to 20% decrease in energy usage by using AI on this building energy management system or home energy management system, that doesn't tell the whole story, because you do need to install indeed like a hardware box in your home. Right? You need to attach that to your smart meter, and that has an externality, that has a cost in itself as well as using AI constantly to give you kind of these energy savings throughout the day, right? That has a cost in itself as well. And that gain, or like that net energy usage, I haven't ever seen that being taken into account, because it's very difficult, it's very situation specific on what the actual cost of using that AI in that very specific moment is, that it's so difficult, and therefore also neglected in a way, to kind of see what is actually the net benefit for homeowners, for example, or even like if you want to make this building even more efficient, for that matter. So I do believe like there should be way more kind of investments, even for that matter, or like research on this topic as well. But I also do feel like that from a ventures perspective, money will flow in the end to where the client or like the market needs it most. So if we in 3 to 5 years find out, okay, yeah, maybe this is not the best solution, then money will flow out of that kind of sector anyways, right? And so it kind of comes in waves throughout the time, I feel. So if it's not a net benefit, it also means that we will find out in 3 to 5 years, because somewhere that cost needs to kind of be blended in the ecosystem. So yeah, definitely there should be somewhat more research on this as well. But I also do feel like it's a kind of a natural movement from an investment perspective.
Yeah, 3 to 5 years sounds quite a long time, given the rate that things are going. Alessa, just do you feel that we should be holding more businesses accountable right now for their emissions through new technologies? How can we do that?
Yeah, I think it's very important that accountability starts to permeate in all enterprises, especially big tech companies. We're seeing some voluntary efforts made by the leading ones like Google or Microsoft. They're starting to publish their environmental reports where they try to detail, for example, how much water and how much energy their data center use, and what do they do with the e-waste. We haven't talked about that, which is also a huge problem. Like, what do we do with that hardware after the end of its life cycle? So these reports, they're starting to give some transparency on the matter, but I still think we have a long way to go. And I would really like to have like a standardized ways for all companies to be able to report on this. And then we would have to create tools to be able to measure this impact, right? Like the whole carbon footprint, how do we measure it? Because we have some metrics for power usage and efficiency, but there's not like a whole standardized tool that everybody could use and maybe analyze like different places where I can build a data center and create a tool that would help me to analyze the environmental impact in each location and on the water source and on the renewable energy that I have available, and then be able to choose the best one. So I think these tools are very necessary, and they should be implemented not just in the key players, but also all the other tech companies that are being involved in AI.
Sure, yeah, it's incredible that there are not these tools available. Claire, you want to add on to this?
Piggyback off that, because there is actually a tool, it's called Makuji.
Okay, tell us about that.
It actually does do that. It looks at the entire IT infrastructure, and from how many devices you have, what type of devices you have, and they have a lot of sources from, a lot of data from multiple different sources that calculates the carbon emissions and the water emissions. They also look at the entire IT team. How often do they travel? So it's very fixated on green IT, but there is one tool that I know of, so I just wanted to...
We just needed to be deployed.
Yeah, that's good. That's a company to look out for. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, be mindful. Like, if you look at this from a startup perspective, I mean, this is not their core objective. Like, if you're a startup, you have other things to worry about, especially in the first, 2 to 5 years, 3 to 3 years, 2 to 4 years. You don't worry about your carbon footprint. I mean, you do see, like, we have an investment in Rockstart, and Rockstart is a fund that invests in energy startups itself. So it's kind of a fund investment for us. And they do actually impose on the startups that they invest in that they have certain criteria that they need to adhere to from an ESG perspective. But that varies a lot, like the phase of the startup. Like if it's just started, then they basically just need to answer kind of 3 or 4 questions on how are you dealing with sustainability. And obviously over time, when they grow towards the Series B stage, that question list of 4 becomes a question, like 40 questions, and it becomes more relevant. So also, like, from an investment perspective, like, take into account that startups are not, I mean, obviously they try to find a solution in the energy transition, but this is not their first and foremost kind of focus, to be fair.
There is a pension fund, I think you mentioned yesterday, a Dutch pension fund that's only looking at investing in specific startups that have accountability for their emissions through AI.
I think
so it's beginning to change.
Yeah, that's ABP, and ABP is one of it's the largest pension fund in the world. And they, for example, have kind of embedded into their investment strategy that they only invest in startups that can actually kind of show a certain criteria that they actually contribute from an ESG perspective towards the goals of ABP, which is to accelerate the energy transition as well. So those kind of like triggers or like advancements from big LPs, big limited partners, big investors in this space, really help even startups to kind of indeed more focus on embedding this into their kind of, their roadmap going forward. But that there needs to be a push somewhere. And it's like, I think ABP is now the front runner in this. I haven't seen too many other companies.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
do
Claire
this.
was going to touch on that. We need the big tech companies to lead the way, but interestingly, I just thought I'd do a test, went into ChatGPT to ask about some of the scientific data about carbon emissions through AI, and funnily enough, it just sort of, for the first time, didn't seem to have many hard facts. So, how are we going to get somewhere when these companies aren't actually being transparent?
I mean, it's a tough thing. I mean, just coming back to yours, that it's not like it's not startups' primary goal to be sustainable. Well, I'm of the opinion I come from like the web world, so like websites originally, and my mantra was always design sustainable by default. And I think that should be how we move forward. Before we build anything new, look at it from what are the planetary boundaries? What are the ethical side of things? Is it local? Is it, far away? Like, how can I make this the most sustainable way and make it from the beginning? I think big tech has the really big struggle that they're so big, getting started is, or getting that cultural shift in the entire business is so hard. I mean, I know this from my previous business, which is originally why I left, because we were pushing this topic, but if you don't have buy-in from the top, it's tough, because we weren't earning enough money for our project, which was basically calculating the carbon emissions of each web page and each page visit. It was a really cool project, but we weren't earning enough money yet because we're not there yet. There's not interest yet. It's growing, and I've seen in the last 3 years like huge momentum in this topic, but we're not there yet. So I feel like big tech does have a big responsibility to say this is important, because if someone like Google says, hey guys, this is really important, we move forward. I mean, I make the comment of like Apple's Mother Nature advert. I have a love-hate relationship with this advert, because I truly believe that they invented e-waste. But at the same time, they are a big tech company that has finally said sustainability is important. So their whole big, if I'm allowed to say this, cult following is now shifting into this, it's important to them. I'm going to think about it now, and I'm going to follow. And I think big tech doesn't know how much power, well, I think they do actually know how much power they have. They just haven't utilized it yet. They don't have to make big changes. They can start making small changes, and they have, and they talk about, Google talks about 24/7 clean energy, et cetera. What they don't talk about is that this clean energy, I mean, you just need to look at the grid of Ireland. They basically take all the clean energy and leave the citizens with a lot of brown energy because they consume it all, because, tax benefits and all. But I think shifting the conversation around, okay, we need to be looking at this from a sustainability perspective makes a huge difference. And like Apple, whilst I don't necessarily agree with everything that they did in that advert, I think it's a massive shift in the right direction, and I just want to see more of it from big tech.
Yeah, and it needs to get out to the wider population, doesn't it? We need to start educating, right, Geordie, and just for people to really understand, because I actually think that people probably have no idea about the impact at the moment. It's only just beginning this conversation. So how do we do that?
That's a good question. Like I even struggle with it myself from an investment perspective, right? Because we invest in startups, and we like, I don't even know that the startups that I invest in, if you look at it from a net energy usage perspective, if it's actually benefiting or not, because there's literally no research about this whatsoever. What I do is I look at it from a client perspective, and from a client perspective, it helps. There's this energy decrease, like there's this, they're helping the client, so there's kind of product market fit. So we see, okay, this is a good product because it's helping clients, and the client is happy. But like taking the overall picture, yeah, we don't know, right? We have no clue whatsoever if there is a net benefit in the entire ecosystem, for that matter. So I feel like. Yeah, there should be some sort of a regulatory framework more around this, I guess.
We love the word regulation, don't we? How many years will that take?
Yeah, but that's going to take ages, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's also a role where I think for, I don't know, big LPs, big tech companies, or even me, for example, investors in general, to I don't know, to take that into account, to invest in, for example, research, but also I think that, like I said before, things will flow naturally to where it benefits the most. And I think that in the end, maybe in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years time, it could be that indeed like AI is not like the most relevant investment anymore from a VC perspective, but it could be something else going on, right? These things comes in waves. So yes, there should be something on the regulatory aspect. It's very difficult though in general to tackle this problem. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you say that things will flow naturally where it benefits the most. At the moment, it's still about profits, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
That's where people are heading. So it's really a changing of a mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Alyssa, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree that it has to be a change on the mindset because making it sustainable, it costs money, and energy transition, it costs money, and so companies, they have to be willing to bear that overcost in order to really support this,
And
it's
be
not going to be cheap.
And be much more holistic. And we've got 3 minutes left, and I do want to put some questions out to the audience because it is an important subject. So does anyone have any questions about AI, innovative technologies, and the impact on environment? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, thank you for the conversation, very interesting. I'd like to know if you tend to agree with something that could be said like, okay, this is an incredible revolution, this transformation that the technology and the AI is happening, so we cannot miss it, so we have to accelerate and go for it even if knowing that has an impact. But at the same time, while we are having this transformation, we have to say something like what the technology and the AI are going to break. Let's make that the technology and the AI are going to fix. I mean, let's say, let's think if this is okay, part of the harm that they are doing, but they have to be the solution also. Do you believe on that, or you see it, maybe let's stop and think a little bit about what it's all about, and then we accelerate when it's more clear, or let's run and let's make also the AI and the technology be part of the solution?
I'll say that. I don't think AI is ever the solution. I think it's a tool. I also had someone else say it's a means to an end. I think humans and human behavior is the solution. And I think it depends on how we use it. And I think if we use it mindfully, that's where you can go forward. You can use AI mindfully. You can make sure that your data centers are in specific areas where there is more green energy. You can make sure that they are sustainably, the materials are sustainably mined. Well, I mean, mining is never sustainable, but we can try. And so I think as long as we are thinking about the big picture, what is the impact if I use AI as a solution for something? Then I think we're going in the right direction. I mean, I always say I'm not a naysayer for AI. I think it can do amazing things. But at the moment, people are not using it as a tool to solve the climate crisis. They are using it as a toy. And I think for as long as we're using AI as a toy, because, generating a nice picture of, I don't know, myself in a spacesuit wandering on the moon is, so great. But what impact have I, or what value have I brought to myself and to the environment and to the people and the planet? And I think as long as you consider people and planet in your usage, you're already making more sustainable decisions. So I don't think it's ever going to be the solution. I think human behavior is the solution, and it's how we use AI is what we need to be thinking about.
Georgie, quickly, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I agree with Claire that obviously AI is a tool, and we should use it properly. Let's put it that way. But I do feel like that AI can actually contribute to a lot of things. For example, I think that quantum computing could be, and obviously we don't know. There's also little to no research on quantum computing, even for example, and quantum computing could kind of, I don't know, advance the AI and the energy usage of AI even more. And if we take those kinds of, and there will be other things than quantum computing even going forward. So there will be kind of an involvement where I think that AI will play a massive role, and especially from a ventures perspective, I do think that, yeah, it will accelerate the energy transition, maybe not in all areas, but in certain areas, for very specific areas, and we do need to take into account kind of indeed like this needs to be some sort of regulatory framework around this.
Final few words, Alessa.
Yeah, well, I also agree with what my Claire and Jordi said. I do think that human behavior will be the answer, and I think it's important to create awareness on how this AI impacts the environment. And for example, as Claire says, we're using it for things that are not necessarily, we don't need
valuable.
AI for that. And like ChatGPT, like to know how much electricity you're consuming every time you make a prompt, you know? The other day I was reading, it's like 500 kilowatt hour a day by the over 200 million prompts it gets a day, asking some things that aren't necessarily as important, you know? So I think awareness will be key, and then for all the partners to work to try to make it as sustainable as possible, but having a conscious use of this AI only where we really need it.
Fantastic. This has been a really interesting conversation. It will continue and continue, I hope. Thank you so much, the three of you, to your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you.